Hey everybody, it's Joe Trippi, and welcome back to That Trippi Show with the Alex Sashlow. I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas or a Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. It's our last episode of 2024. Alex, this week, where do you want to go?
You know, just to give the listeners just a little insight into the background of this show, right before this show, for some reason, your computer started auto playing "Goodnight Saigon" by Billy Joel. I believe the chorus is something like "We'd all go down together." We said we'd all go
Yeah,
down
it's like
together.
really good. It was playing in my ears. It was really scary. But anyway, hey, we're here. If you're worried about going to war with Panama or maybe Denmark or over Greenland, it kind of does feel like a little deja vu with that song. But anyway, where do you want to go, Alex?
You were on CNN, I think, right before Christmas, and I think since then he said some even crazier things. But you made a point about kind of how all this goes with Trump, kind of that idea of chaos, and I wanted you to expand on that for our listeners.
It's the whole thing. It's going to be governance by rally, right? He goes to rally, says crazy stuff, revs up his troops, and then the whole planet goes like, did he mean it? Did he not mean it? And in the end, the problem is that his coalition, some people, I mean, you're never sure because, I mean, look at what happened with Elon Musk and continuing resolution. And, 12 hours later, Trump decides, oh, yeah, I'm with Musk on that. And, if you're Mike Johnson or somebody who's actually trying to get a bill passed to keep the government running, things just don't work anymore. It's going to be a lot of chaos. And Stuart Stevens continues to say this, and I think he's right, that the Trump coalition is much more fragile, I think is the words he puts, than all of us think. And so it's kind of like take, his coalition of Latinos and Hispanics that he added, and then he's going to go deep, into mass deportation, splitting up families, all those things. And of course, that could erode that part of his coalition. It may really rev up the MAGA crazies on the far right. I mean, I'm talking about the white supremacists and the white Christian nationalists will love it. But how does he hold that coalition together if he doesn't do it? Either way, somebody's going to walk on him. And I think it's the same thing with some of these other things that he's been doing that are I guess he did name an ambassador to Panama. So at least we'll at least start out with some kind of diplomatic relations with the country, assuming they accept the ambassador and let them into the embassy. But it's already I mean the real pushback that I liked was Mexico's president, who made some pretty strong statements in response to Trump and his crazy stuff. So we'll see. It's just going to be interesting to see who pushes back and who caves.
Well, the interesting thing, I think, by the way, and I realize we led with it, but we're talking about the stupid Panama remarks. There's the whole Greenland thing, which, by the way, I believe I saw that the Danish, quote, ratcheted up their Greenland defense.
They're ratcheting up their defense systems to defend Greenland.
They're adding probably a third customs officer to the two they probably already had.
Maybe the customs officer can carry a weapon at this point. We don't know for sure.
We have already spent time today talking about it. I'm sure this is all over most of the news that most Americans follow. And it seems to me like we're falling into the same old Trump trap again, where we're all reacting to the kind of the hilariously dumb thing that he's saying. That's like, it's irrelevant, it's dumb, it's useless, it's something that he woke up thinking about. So he just says he's the president elect, he will be president, so it gets reported on. But the stuff that's happening under the surface, or the stuff that's going to happen too, that is not getting reported on. Give you an example. Columbia University just announced or kind of gave guidance to all their international students. You better get back into the country before Trump takes office, because otherwise you might not be allowed back in. It's that stuff that's happening under the surface with a much, much more competent cadre around him of both enablers and people who know how to execute it.
It's a wonderful holiday season, Alex, and this is the whole point is, yeah, he is saying provocative stuff like he always does. you talk about all these people who don't pay attention, do not, low information voters who didn't know that Greenland was part of Denmark, who are learning, who are discovering, things that they did not know because of Trump's crazy, I think a lot of them probably didn't know that Panama was no longer ours, that it didn't belong to the United States anymore, and they're probably doing like, well, how did that happen? It's been quite a while though, and it's just I think I said this on CNN, like he doesn't know. I could go either way on this. He either doesn't know how treaties work, or he doesn't really care if we have a treaty. Let's just tear the damn thing
It
up.
can be both.
Yeah, it's probably both. But again, it's the coalition that he's trying. There's no rhyme or reason to what he's saying. He doesn't even. That's what I'm saying. I don't think he understands the implications this will have on his own base. Again, going to war with Panama, the Panama Canal, and as I said this on CNN too, like a ton of the world's goods flow freely, through that canal. So what could go wrong when you start threatening that you're going to close it down or take it, and take it to the U.S.? We're talking, well, inflation could happen, shipping lanes could be under threat and not clear, all kinds of stuff yeah, I'm sure some of his MAGA cult is out there going like, yeah, let's take the Panama Canal back. Damn it, make America great again. Yeah, I think like everything, Steve Bannon is one of these guys. There's a lot of people around Trump who want to burn the whole thing down. And I keep saying this, I've said it before. The problem with that, they want to burn it down because then green shoots will come up in the forest. Like what happens after a bad, real bad forest fire. And the problem with that is that they don't understand everything in the forest dies. Trade goes to hell. The shipping lanes are closed. It doesn't work. And it may take a long time to open them up again. In the meantime, the people, the working people he claims he's supposedly doing this all for, suffer the most because their prices go up, et cetera. And it's not just this, it's the tariffs, it's taxes for the rich, tax breaks for the rich, I mean, which will have to be paid for by cutting Social Security, Medicare, whatever, or privatizing it. All the other crazy stuff he's going to try to do. The problem is he believes he has a mandate. He doesn't. And we'll see, do the American people, and that's where we come in. It's starting to tell people, talk to people, build our own friend to friend. You've got an uncle or someone who, for this guy. And it's just important to start making sure that they at least hear from you what's going on here, because this is going to be a slow erosion process. That's how we're going to have to take on the propaganda machine and that's really what's going on here. He says something, his propaganda machine goes crazy with it. Fox, Breitbart, Alex Jones, whoever, anybody. And it starts rippling through his networks. And there's no concerted method to hit back. There's nobody to take on the propaganda. That's us. We have to start doing it. And the peer-to-peer is the best way to do that. And we've stopped talking to them. We like, how many of us have just like stopped arguing with the crazy? And it's not about arguing with them anymore. It's using these splinters that happen. In other words, when he starts going after and does the mass deportation thing, there are people who just never believed he would actually do it. They voted for him. They didn't really think it was going to happen. We need to start working those people and anybody else. So I mean, I don't want to turn this into what do we do next? We've got it's a holiday out there. We've got the new year coming. There's going to be plenty of time. Not plenty of time. We got to start right away. But after the new year, we'll be on with really constructive and important things that we believe people can do and that we all need to be doing.
I think you're right. As we wrap up the year, and we don't need to recap it any more than everyone has already heard. But the one I do want to look ahead, Joe, and we got a good listener question from Sarah in Texas that came in right before Christmas. Any bold predictions from 25 and 26? And she wants to clarify, not about the Cowboys, please. I was going to make fun of them, but she told me not to, so I will not. Joe, look into your crystal ball. Anything you predict in the next 2 years? I know I got a couple, but I want to hear yours too.
No, look, I think there's going to be massive overreach by Trump and the MAGA Republicans in the House, Senate. You're already seeing this. They're now going after, I mean, they're going after sites. Jim Jordan is going after sites that actually try to present the truth. He's going after them as to shut them down because they're promoting, left-wing conspiracy theories. They're going to go after the press. It's really just a question of we talk about, overreach, but how much overreach can they get away with? And I just don't think the votes are there. Not like they have got plenty of votes in the Senate and the House. I'm talking about with the American people who just like start after a while. But we'll see what he does. I mean, his first day when he becomes the dictator on day one and launches all his executive, basically waves a wand, and we'll see what he does with his executive orders. But I think it's going to be pretty quick where people are going to get a real idea of what that he really means what he's saying, and he's going to do it. But there's a lot we have to work on. I mean, there is, you talked about it, on the CNN hit where I got asked about Joe Manchin's comments, that the Democratic brand is.
Oh yeah, is the Democratic brand toxic?
Yes, it is. Did I think it was so toxic that we would lose to him? No, I didn't believe that. I didn't think that. But as I did say on CNN, and you and I experienced this in 2017 when we worked for Doug Jones, the toxicity of the Democratic brand. And what I mean by that, I'm talking about their ability on their networks to work people and to create fear and to scare the living daylights out of people about what the Democratic brand is and will do was so intense in 2017 that we ran smack dab into it in Alabama and barely got Doug Jones past the national toxicity of the Democratic national brand. By 3 years later, and you and I experienced it, it was so intense. The networks were so much bigger. The poison that those networks were pushing into the system to demonize Democrats, that, I mean, whether it was pedophilia, whether it was communist, socialist, it didn't matter. When I said on the CNN, we sometimes added and, fed it, what was going on is, yeah, defund the police. So they take a few people, a minority in the party, with signs that say defund the police or saying they want to defund the police. And they turn that into it's the entire Democratic Party wants to defund the police. And it just seeps in through their networks and they push it everywhere. And that's just one example. We can go through with transgender, everything under the sun. They take a whatever the most extreme statement by anybody on the progressive side, and they amplify it and they rattle it through the networks. And now they have Elon Musk and X, and they have Facebook, and they have Fox News and Breitbart, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they have UFC, Ultimate Fighting Championship, and World Wrestling Entertainment, and the crypto networks and the AI enthusiast networks, and they just work them and they poison them on the Democratic brand. We help fuel it. There's self-inflicted wounds by a few that are then used to demonize the entire party. And so I agree with Manchin that the brand, it became so toxic by 2020 that Doug Jones didn't stand a chance. Now it was Alabama, so that makes sense that it would get to that level there first. But by 2024, those networks, the demonization, our own self-inflicted standing on principle instead of being, and the language that was being used and amplified by them to scare and make people afraid, inflation, et cetera. Even though, again, I keep going back to this. Sinclair Broadcasting is in every network, in every market. They're telling everybody the economy sucks, and then we wonder why. And so is Fox, and so is the Wall Street Journal, and everybody else. And the journalism cannot stand up to this stuff. I really do think, though, that the reality. There's one thing scaring the living daylights out of people, and using your networks to create that fear and division. But now those people are going to want things to get done. They're going to want to see those prices go down, which is kind of amazing since prices don't go down. They never had.
Right. And Trump already said they're not going to go down.
But that's my point. When everybody's saying, like, geez, I was with nostalgia about prices when Trump was around. Yeah, well, I've got nostalgia about 1976 when gas prices were 36 cents a gallon. 36 cents a gallon. There's a reason they're not 36 cents a gallon. There's a reason the feds target their inflation at 2% inflation a year, because they're trying to keep prices going up at about 2% a year. They're going up at 2.7 in the last couple of rounds, but they're never going to go to, well, they could go to -2% a year. If they do, you're on your way to a depression. That's where you're starting to be a different problem. But the one that he's talking, his promise that he was going to lower prices is bullshit, particularly after his tariffs, particularly after saber rattling about the Panama Canal, about taking Greenland from Denmark. I'm over in Europe right now for the holidays, visiting relatives, and people here are just like, okay, they're not sitting there going like thinking that the United States has got a stable president coming in right now. They have no clue and about what kind of they know from the 4 years when he was in that it was chaos, and that's all. The only thing anybody expects from him is another chaos president. Except this time and this is the thing, I actually wonder whether if all those people, Melly, et cetera, hadn't saved him from himself. In other words, he had people who actually tried to get him to not do the wrong thing and actually held things up and slowed them down. And in a way, he, managed to keep him from doing the super crazy. Well, now those people are all gone. He's appointing super crazies to the cabinet. And so, a lot of people are terrified by that. I'm not. I actually think, thank God, maybe let people see exactly without anybody holding him up and without him being able to blame the Democrats for it. Let's see how far over the edge that he takes policy with his pronouncements, and see how long the American people will stand for it. Maybe they'll love it, but I don't think that's the country we're in, and I don't think that's what they were expecting. I think there was all nostalgia, and they're about to find out, hey, it wasn't all that great, and it's going to be worse.
Before we go, I got two, and we can get more into this next year, but it seems to me that Democrats, my bold prediction, will once again overperform in basically all the special and local elections, and probably in 2026 as well. And I think it's a function of just the anger at incumbents. It's less about us doing a great job and more about just the anger that we saw this year continuing. That's number one. I think you'll see the same overperformance. You'll see a lot more results like you saw in Kansas. And then I think this is my boldest one, Joe. The who we start talking about as the front runner for president on the Democratic side next time is going to be someone that no one is talking about
Oh,
right now.
absolutely. Absolutely. We're not going to, I think a lot of the people that are running or that everybody talks about that they're going to run, one of them could emerge, but I do think it's likely it's likely that it won't be anybody that we're all talking about right now, or think, they've been part of the talks out there. The one thing I can tell you is that every time anybody's had all three the trifecta, including Democrats. Every time a party's done that, it's overreached. It thought it had a mandate. This wasn't that big a victory. It was a couple 100,000 votes in a few states. I don't even think it was a couple hundred something thousand in a few states that made him it may be a million or so in the popular vote. We're not talking about, the kind of victories that maybe Barack Obama had in 2008 or that Reagan had in 1984. This is a very close election. They don't have roughly half the country did not vote for any of them, doesn't want them. It's a little less than half, but 48, 49%. And they're acting like they've got it all. I mean, like they can do anything they want. And he will always be that guy. So I don't think that's going to hold up. I agree with Stuart Stevens that their coalition is fragile. It cannot hold together. And it's just going to be how fast does their bullshit become clear to enough that it starts to unravel on them. We have to, while that's going on, build our own information distribution systems, look at who the candidates out there that are running, get behind people that we think are going to be the leaders of the future, the leader of the future. And we have to look out for each other. Forget about, the New York Times come into our rescue or any billionaire or no, we to do it. And we have to do that by creating safe spaces, not places where we don't hear disagreement, but safe places where we are the ones distributing the information, agreeing on what's true, what's real, and making sure that we distribute that to our friends, our families, particularly at things like this over the holidays. We need to have those conversations and we need to keep pushing forward. And we do, I think, 26 and 28. I think they will have overreached and will have done significant damage to their brand while we have done what we need to rebrand ourselves and become. The other thing I think is, look, the left is always, and the right have both taken defeat to make themselves more pragmatic. That's what it takes. And I think we have to be more thoughtful about our language and more understanding that we have to reach out and let people and invite people into this party and talk to them. And they are going to do the opposite. They're going to like get their cult going and be more energized by the crazy. And I think those two things combined, if we become that kind of party and really become a bridge to invite people over, I think 2025, 2026 are going to be good years for us.
Joe, I think that's the perfect place for us to end.
Thanks, Alex, for hanging out with me for another year. And thanks, everyone, for listening to That Trippi Show. I hope everyone has a happy new year. We'll see you in 2025. Says Us is now live, sez.us. Seriously, we're in the Android, the Google Play App Store now. We're an app. We hopefully will be on Apple's Apple Store in a week or two into the new year. It's a lot better than hanging out on X. So join us at sez.us and help us build a pro-democracy social network. This podcast will always be free and is part of Resolute Square. Check out the latest at resolutesquare.com/Trippi. Please subscribe to That Trippi Show. Leave a review on Apple or wherever you listen. Also, if you're listening to this episode on YouTube, and a lot of people are, please, and that never occurred to me, but a lot of you are, please like and subscribe to get alerts when we post the next episode. You can always send us a question to thattrippishow@gmail.com or leave us a question in a review on iTunes. See you next year in 2025. Have a great New Year's.
Resolute Square.